my kitchen. I'm Tiara, and today we are going to do something that does not involve meringue, which is something that I've been making a lot of lately with souffle cheesecake, lemon meringue pie. So let's do something that doesn't have a meringue. So I received a message on Facebook a couple of days ago, and it says, "Hi, my name is Tiffany." Hi, Tiffany. I've been watching you live via cooking demos. Thank you. If at all possible, at some point, would you be able to make a cheesecake? I don't know what I do wrong, but my middle just will not set. I cook a lot and even cook live on Facebook, and this has become my nemesis. Okay, so I think that is a great suggestion of something that's easy to make that can sometimes feel tricky, but it's not really, I promise. So today we'll make a cheesecake, and I'm going to run through the very basic ingredients of making a cheesecake, and then I want to zhuzh this up a little bit. So I'll add in some other stuff that we'll go over as well. But right now, let's just start with the main ingredients of the cheesecake. Okay, first and foremost, we have four 8-ounce packages of cream cheese. So don't buy cheap cream cheese is my first suggestion. Pay the extra $1 or whatever to get the Philadelphia cream cheese because it really does make a difference. Each package is 8 ounces, so you're looking at 32 ounces of cream cheese. And then we have a cup of sour cream, and we have 1.5 cups of granulated sugar, 1/4 cup of flour, and then 3/4 of a cup of milk, and 4 eggs. And then for the crust, I have a bunch of crumbled up graham crackers. I think maybe there were about a dozen of them. And then 2 tablespoons of melted butter. And I'm going to use a tablespoon of vanilla, but we'll get into that in a minute. What I really want to do is I kind of want to make something that's a little fruity and has a little bit of a zing to it. So what I'm going to do is today we're going to make the regular cheesecake, but half of it I'm going to add blueberries and a little bit of cardamom and ginger. So we'll have a blueberry, cardamom, and ginger cheesecake. And if you don't like those ingredients, don't add them in. It's as simple as that. A basic cheesecake is everything that I've laid out right here, and you don't have to add anything extra to it. Let's go ahead and get started. And we're going to start with our springform pan. I have sprayed a little bit of baking spray around the edges, and I put some parchment on the bottom. And then I'm just going to take a fork, pour in the melted butter, and give it a good mix. It's not going to be super wet. The butter is just barely going to hold this together, but we're going to press it down into the springform pan. And when you cook the cheesecake, a little bit of that moisture will seep into the crust, so it won't be super dry, I promise. Now, since I said we're going to do cardamom ginger, I'm also going to add that to the crust. About a teaspoon of cardamom, a 1/4 teaspoon of ginger. I'm using dried ginger. I just used up the last of my fresh ginger making some pad thai, so dried ginger it is, but if you have fresh ginger, it's about 1/2 teaspoon grated. Let's give that a mix. So when you're making the graham crackers, when you bring them out of the package, you can break them up by just putting them really quickly into the food processor, or what I did was I put them into a gallon-sized Ziploc bag and used my rolling pin to just crush them. You can use a book, a hammer. I mean, honestly, take this moment to take your frustrations out on those graham crackers, right? All right. Pour this in. I just used one of those little packages of graham crackers. If you buy a box that has maybe 3 sets of 5 large graham crackers. should be plenty. If you feel like you need a little bit more, you can always add a little bit more. And it is easier to take away than it is to add some. And if it feels dry, you can melt another tablespoon of butter and mix it in, but it doesn't need to be too wet. All right, so now for the cheesecake, I'm going to grab my stand mixer. You can mix with a regular hand mixer. I just use the stand mixer because I have it and it makes life easier for me. But there's nothing wrong with having a hand mixer and not having a stand mixer. Grab my stand mixer, and I've got my paddle attachment thingy. I'll just put in the cream cheese. The cream cheese is at room temperature. If you feel like it's still too cold and it's not soft enough after it's been sitting out for about an hour, you can nuke the whole thing for about 20 seconds. You don't want it to be melted though, so don't go crazy. All right, so I'm also going to grab my sugar, and then I'm going to start beating the cream cheese, and then I'll add in the sugar. You see when it's on medium, it kind of shakes everything. Add in my sugar. You can see it kind of all clumped up onto here. So maybe it wasn't quite room temperature when I put it in here, but it'll be okay. So just giving it a nice mix until it's incorporated. You see how nice and smooth that is now compared to when you first put the cream cheese in? Nice and smooth now that the sugar is in. Okay, now I'm going to add in the milk. If things get too far up the sides, you can use a spatula to just kind of push everything down back into the center of the bowl. Not as much of a problem with a handheld mixer, so there you go, another reason that you can use a hand mixer instead of a stand mixer. I got it on low right now because I don't want the milk to go flying everywhere. Alright, that's incorporated. Now I'm going to start adding my eggs, one egg at a time. If you're not really good at beating eggs, crack them somewhere other than the edge of the dish, that way you don't get any shells in there. I'm gonna push the sides of this down a little bit because we've got some egg and cream cheese stuck on the sides, and I want to make sure that the bottom gets mixed in too. And sometimes when you're using a stand mixer, things tend to stick around the bottom sides. So that's it. Now I'm going to add in the sour cream. While it's going, I stepped away very briefly to preheat the oven to 300 degrees. Alright, and the last ingredient I'm going to put in is my flour. And I'm going to kind of, usually I would sift it, but today it's fine. It's just a little bit of flour and it should be okay. So I'm just beating it on medium until it's nice and smooth. Alright, so I did say that I wanted to do a little bit of blueberry, but I'm going to do half and half. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first remove the mixing paddle. And we can put the stand mixer to the side. Okay. I'm going to take half of the cheesecake batter and I'm going to separate it into this bowl over here. All right, so I've divided my mixture. In one bowl, I'm just going to add a tablespoon of vanilla extract. And by the way, if you just want a plain cheesecake, this is all you have to do is add vanilla extract and the other ingredients that we have already mixed together, and you're good to go. And then to the other half, I'm going to add a cup of blueberries. These were frozen blueberries and they've thawed out a bit, so there's a little bit of juice. I like frozen fruit inside of stuff like this because I feel like the flavor is somehow more concentrated. Maybe that's just my mind, I don't know. But it feels that way to me. So I'll mix in those blueberries. I'm going to add in half a teaspoon of cardamom and then another quarter teaspoon of ginger. Other combinations you might like to try are blackberry and cinnamon and ginger, or lemon and blueberry is good too. Here's the beef for the oven. All right, I'm gonna give this a little taste. I just want a tiny bit more cardamom. So I'd like 1/8 of a teaspoon. About. Now we're going to be a little fancy. We're going to take our pie crust and I'm going to do a layer of the plain vanilla cheesecake. Spread it over. Try not to pick up any loose graham cracker crumbs. Now a layer of the blueberry. Oh, I'm thinking this springform pan is a little shorter than the ones I am used to working with, or the ones that I've had before, because there's definitely a lot more cheesecake here than there is springform pan. Or this might be smaller. Anyway, I'm just doing a couple layers of each. So this is ready to go into the oven. It's going to go in for 1 hour at 300 degrees, and then we will check on it after that. So briefly, before I start cleaning up and getting ready to make a blueberry topping for my cheesecake, I just wanted to talk about cheesecake and setting, because Tiffany said that she has trouble with her cheesecake setting. So when you bake a cheesecake, Because it's largely eggs and cheese, it's going to be fairly jiggly. If you pull a cheesecake out of the oven and it's completely solid, you have overbaked it. It is going to be a little bit jiggly in the center when it comes out. However, you're going to let it cool down for about an hour on the counter, and then you're going to put it in the refrigerator for about 4 hours before you eat it. And in that time, the cheesecake should set. So remember, you don't have to worry about the cheesecake not having a solid center in the middle when you pull it out of the oven. If it does, it's overcooked, so you don't want that. Just keep that in mind when we take a look at the cheesecake when it comes out of the oven. So the cheesecake has come out of the oven. As you can see, it's still very jiggly in the center. And of course, I overfilled this particular pan, so it rose up a little bit over the pan and kind of looks weird around the edges, but it'll be fine. It'll taste great, trust me. So now I'm just going to let it cool for an hour out on the counter, and then it'll go in the fridge for probably about 4 hours, I would say. You want it to have time to cool down and firm up completely. And then all I did was I took about a cup and a half of frozen blueberries, maybe a cup of sugar, and a couple of teaspoons of cornstarch. Mixed them together over the stove until the blueberries were nice and mushy. And now I'm just letting that sit on the counter. And when I'm ready to serve, I'll put that on the top and make it look nice and pretty. And then it'll be ready to eat. We're back. As you can see, the cheesecake is set. It's out of the tin. I went ahead and I put the blueberry sauce that I made, or compote that I made, on top. And then I just whipped up a little bit of whipped cream and kind of put it around the edges for a little bit of finishing and to hide some of the mistakes. So, I mean, I'm a home baker. We're home bakers, I assume, if you are watching this. And it doesn't look perfect. It doesn't look like you find at the bakery or, you know, in a professional baking competition or whatever. But that's okay. It looks good. And it's, you know, what's important is that, you know, it comes from you. So whether you're making it for a friend, like I did for this cheesecake, or you're making it for yourself because you love to eat cheesecake, it doesn't have to look perfect because it's going to taste good. So as I mentioned, I made this for a friend, so I'm not going to touch this one, but I did have some extra batter left over when I cooked the cheesecake. So I put it into this ramekin and I baked this alongside the cheesecake. Now this doesn't have the crust on the bottom, but it'll still give me a good idea of what the cheesecake tastes like. It's mostly the blueberry cheesecake, with a little bit of the vanilla on top. And that's very tasty. The cream cheese the cheesecake is nice and smooth and creamy. You get some of that cardamom and ginger flavor inside of the berries, but not too overwhelming. I'm sure there will be a little slightly stronger flavor inside of the version with the crust, but I don't think it will be overpowering. I think it gives it a nice little flavor, or added flavor to it. So I just want to say thank you to Tiffany for requesting
that I make a cheesecake. If you have a recipe that you would like to try or want to bake along with me, please send me a message and let me know, and I'll be happy to make it with you. And I'm not sure what we're going to make next time, but I promise that whatever it is, it will be delicious. So we'll see you then. Bye-bye.